Hey, brothers and sisters, welcome to the Babylon Report. Today I want to go over a few articles that really stuck out to me regarding the future Babylon, which I believe, Scripture is very clear, is in the land of Shinar. The popular opinion, of course, is that Babylon could be New York City. We have some YouTube channels trying to sensationalize the Scriptures and make Babylon fit into New York City, which, if we go to Revelation 18, we can find a ton of similarities between the two. However, we must also compare Scripture with Scripture. Turning to Zechariah chapter 5, regarding the vision of the woman in a basket, Zechariah 5:5 says, "Then the angel who talked with me came out and said to me, 'Lift your eyes now and see what is this that goes forth.' So I asked, 'What is it?' And he said, 'It is a basket that is going forth.' He also said, 'This is their resemblance throughout the earth. Here is a lead disc lifted up, and this is a woman sitting inside the basket.' Then he said, 'This is wickedness.' And he thrust her down into the basket and threw the lead cover over its mouth. Then I raised my eyes and looked, and there were two women coming with the wind in their wings, for they had wings like the wings of a stork, and they lifted up the basket between earth and heaven." Now notice what it says here in verses 10 and 11, brothers and sisters. "So I said to the angel who talked with me, 'Where are they carrying the basket?'" This is important. This is a very important clue that we can take away from this text. Verse 11, "And he said to me, 'To build a house for it in the land of Shinar. When it is ready, the basket will be set there on its base.'" Another word for base we could say is the headquarters. So, where is the land of Shinar? It is in modern-day Iraq, or ancient Babylon. Now, let's go to a few articles, because there's a lot of people that just aren't convinced that there could be a rebuilt Babylon in the Middle East. Right now, it's pretty much, as they say, a desert, but there's actually a lot more happening than meets the eye. And right now, of course, we want the rapture to happen, so we tend to look at headlines, and we tend to try to fit Babylon into New York because New York is all set up. It's ready to go. However, I do not believe we are doing justice to the Scriptures, especially to Zechariah chapter 5. So let's go to the first article. This is from the nationalnews.com. "What is Iraq's development road, and will it change U.S. and China trade routes?" Now that's very interesting, brothers and sisters. So we're looking at trade routes. This article delves into the fact that they are looking to get more trade routes through Iraq, which we know modern day Iraq is where Babylon is. So I just want to read a quick quote from this article. In the article it says, quote, "Having recently returned to the U.S. after spending 4 years in Baghdad, he noticed more Gulf investors expanding into Iraq. When I was there, I noticed all these American companies opening branches in Baghdad, like KFC, Pizza Hut, Cinnabon, Cold Stone Creamery, and others. And when I looked into it, they were official branches from the Americana company that's actual Kuwaiti that brought in American franchises in the Middle East," he says. So that's very, very interesting, brothers and sisters. So let's go to our second article. The second article is from oilprice.com. "Iraq and China strengthen ties with major development initiative." Okay. So a series of high-level meetings took place last week, and this article is dated June 18th of this year. Last week, between senior Iraqi and Chinese officials to finalize the details of the next phase of their wide-ranging cooperation plan. The foundations for this were laid in the 2019 Oil for Reconstruction and Investment Agreement, which was subsequently expanded into the 2021 Iraq-China Framework Agreement. We go a little further into this article, and it describes some interesting details about how oil oil, brothers and sisters, is going to play a very important role in bringing this rebuilt city back to Iraq, which will be Babylon. Okay? Now, if you look at your screen here, I put up a couple maps. Look at this bigger map. It's the India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor. You can see how this trade route goes from India all the way to Europe. Notice very carefully that it does go through the area where Babylon will be built and Israel. Now, why is this important? Well, I believe that the Gog-Magog invasion will take place somewhere around the second seal in the tribulation. So there will be a false peace by the Antichrist made with Israel. Then we have the players of the Gog-Magog war, which is Russia, Turkey, Iran, and a few other nations from the south like Sudan. And I believe that they are going to envy Israel's wealth, Israel's prosperity, and this covenant that was made with Israel and the Antichrist. And they're going to covet, again, the wealth of Israel. And that's what essentially motivates them to come against Israel. Now, we know that God will completely wipe out these armies, which will then weaken these nations, creating a power vacuum. Now, notice this map here. What countries are around Iraq? There you have Turkey, you have Iran, and of course, Russia to the north. Now, this opens up the Middle East wide open for more trading when you don't have the threat of Russia, Iran, and Turkey being wiped out after the Gog-Magog invasion. Then we get to the midpoint of the tribulation, and we know that the Antichrist will set himself up in the temple, the rebuilt temple. And then eventually we see in Revelation 17 and 18, that city, Babylon, is destroyed by God at the end of the tribulation. So again, this is all really economic because we know the Antichrist will use these particular trade routes, as you see on these maps, to build his empire, to build his kingdom, and this headquarters of the Antichrist kingdom will be in Babylon. All right, so if we go to this article here, it's entitled, Iraq Launches $17 billion road and rail project to link Asia and Europe. Again, this is bringing these kingdoms together. From this article, it says, quote, if work starts early next year, this was in 2023, the project would be completed in 2029. Even if Iraq was absent for a year or two or a decade or two, it must return one day or another. Hopefully, these days are the beginning of the return of Iraq, he said. And this is from Reuters. This article comes from Reuters. Scrolling down a little bit more, we see kind of what their purpose is in drawing up these plans. They really just want to create more economic development in the Middle East. So they're projecting that by 2029, this project will be complete. Okay. Another quote is, we will make this line active again and tie it to other countries. Noting plans to ferry tourists and pilgrims to Shiite holy sites in Iraq and Mecca and Saudi Arabia from the Hajj pilgrimage. The project was announced at a conference aimed at courting Arab interests, including from Arab Gulf states, Syria and Jordan. Jordan, interesting. These are the countries that enter in agreement with Israel, but they don't personally get involved in the conflict of the Gog-Magog war. They just kind of stand back. So, brothers and sisters, a lot of people will say, well, Babylon can't be rebuilt in the Middle East because it's not a port city, but it is. If you look at the maps that I have put up here for you, you can see that it's surrounded by water, and it's very easily able to transport goods from one area of the earth to the other. So again, I wanted to start this Babylon report because so many people are so focused on New York City. It can only be New York City. But if we're true to the text and we look at what's described here, especially as it relates to Revelation 17 and 18 and Zechariah chapter 5, we have to look at a rebuilt Babylon in Iraq. And a lot of people take their theology from what they can just see here and now and not understand that things have to develop. There has to be more stage setting. Does this mean that the rapture can't happen tomorrow? Absolutely not. These are tribulation shadows that are already casting its shadows upon us as we speak. And this can happen very rapidly, very quickly, especially when there's a world crisis, a world economic collapse. All the worlds pooling their resources together can make things happen very quickly, as it did at the Tower of Babel. So again, until next time, Maranatha.